we'll be discussing the qualitative data analysis and interpretation. So this will be qualitative research design. The outline of the discussion would be as follows. Research, qualitative research, the different paradigms, why it's important, approaches, types of data, data collection methods, sampling, challenges, the steps which need to be undertaken, data management, data analysis, data interpretation, coding, high quality coding, ethics, and summary. So we'll go ahead. Okay, what is research? So basically, we need to collect data systematically to have documentation of all kinds of information that we get, after which we need to do some analysis, which is very different from interpretation. Many times people confuse the two, and many times people do not really understand what the word analysis means. In fact, we have an American colleague here who teaches who always used the word analysis when he meant interpretation. And he's an American. He's a well-established author in Scopus publications. So we will clarify that here. And then what are the methodologies needed in the specific fields and academic discipline? Each area, like business, engineering, medicine, nursing, theology, divinity, social sciences, the arts, humanities are very different requirements. Although there's a very general way by which we conduct research, each field has some differences. So what is qualitative research? In one word, it is using non-numerical data. The reason for which is to explore and interpret human experience, behavior, and phenomena. So we're looking at people as such, how they interact, and what's going on in the world. For instance, we can study how people felt and what were the experiences of people during the lockdown, quarantine, during the COVID-19 pandemic at its height. So it captures very rich narratives, which means getting information, stories of people with a lot of details, and looking at people's points of view, which means it's not objective as such. We need to look at people's subjective feelings, but we report them objectively. So it's very dialectical. People's subjective feelings, we must try to represent as much as possible objectively, based on what they say and the context. Context is one very big input in qualitative research, as opposed to quantitative research. Context might not really matter, but for qualitative, it's one of the bases upon which qualitative research is undertaken. So the aims of which is to look into the depth of the knowledge of the researcher on the things being and the people being studied. It could be individual, groups, organizations, villages, hospitals, or any other venue. So we're looking at very nuanced way by which people say things, do things, feel things. And we need to have an attachment with the people with whom we are interacting. Unlike in qualitative, you just crunch number, which could be done, but in qualitative, relationship is of utmost significance. And we're looking at very complex human interaction and human feelings. People can change from one day to the other. Okay, so when we look at qualitative research, we can contrast it with the other types. So what's the difference? In qualitative, we're getting non-numerical data as opposed to the qualitative and the mixed method. And then what are important are words, ideas, things. Sometimes we call them artifacts. So sometimes when we study, let's say, a university, we have to look at the classroom, the chairs, the room, the AV, the types of chair, the clothes that students wear. Do they wear uniform or do they wear as they wish? All the little things are very important. And for experiences as well, are the students mostly from the neighborhood? For which reason they walk to class? Or are they from far-flung villages? Sometimes they have to walk miles, or climb mountains, or cross rivers, or take buses, or drive to school. So we're looking at all those very nuanced differences and people's views. The same school with the same students could have 100 views about the experiences of the school. Unlike in quantitative, you can just categorize them easily, crunching number. But for qualitative, there are methods which we need to use to really measure accurately the views of people. So the structure of qualitative research, it's quite flexible. In quantitative research, you have a hypothesis. You have to go ahead and show that the null hypothesis is rejected or not rejected, and you accept the alternative hypothesis or not. While in qualitative research, sometimes you have some ideas. However, upon reaching the village that you go to, you realize that you have not really considered many things which exist in the village. You thought it was composed only of Adivasi, but then you realize there are also people from Nagaland. Like, you did not take that into consideration, but there are also Sikhs and Hindus, and there are also people from Nepal. Like, oh, I did not take that into consideration when I started to write my proposal to do research in the field. I thought they were all Adivasi, but then there were Nagaland people, there are people from Nepal, and then there are also Sikhs and Hindu. I have now to change. So it's more open to changes when you do qualitative research, not like quantitative. It's almost cast in stone. So that's a major difference between the two. The strength of qualitative research is you don't just say people are happy, but to what extent are they happy? 1%, 2%, 3%, very happy. And why are they happy? You go deep, 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 and try to find out in the depths of their hearts and minds the reasons for which they feel the emotions that they feel. But the weakness of qualitative research is you have to go, let's say, spend some time in the village. And you can only talk about the village. You cannot generalize. You cannot talk about, because it happens in this village, therefore all villages have the same experience. We cannot do that. We don't have the power of generalizability. And it's more open to subjective feelings. So it's harder to, as I have mentioned earlier, try as objectively as possible, explain and present the subjective feelings of people when you do a qualitative research. Now, example is for qualitative research is to analyze stories of people to find out for common themes. For example, when there's an economic crisis, do migrant workers come back to Bangladesh, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, or do they stay and prolong their stay or move to another country? Let's say if they're in Dubai, would they go to Abu Dhabi or Bahrain or Qatar, or will they jump and go to Vienna, Austria? So we are trying to analyze and look for people's stories and look for what is common with them. Some things might emerge: depression, hope, anxiety. So we will try to find out what they are. Okay, so the recommendations for qualitative research is we really have to go and find as much detailed insights as we could. Okay. What are the different research paradigms? This is important. This is like, it seems it's not directly related to the topic, but it is. I'll explain why. Okay, there are four. This is how I organize it. Other people organize it differently. Number one is behavioralism and positivism. Number two is interactionism, interpretivism, or phenomenology. or hermeneutics too. I forgot to write it. Number 3 is critical theory, humanism, and reform. Number 4 is liberation and transformation. What are the differences and how does that affect our qualitative research? Okay. In behavioralism and positivism, we just look at things as they are. For example, we say, what are shows being shown on TV? Are they mostly Bollywood films? Are they Hollywood films? Are they Korean drama? Are they K-pop music? Are they Bollywood music? So we just say and look at things as they are. And then we say, oh, it's good or it's not good, and so on and so forth. This is accepting things as they are. Most research, maybe 80%, focus on that. Okay, or 70 or 80%. Number 2 is interpretivism, interaction. This is more on the individual, looking at how do I look at the world? Am I happy? Am I sad? Or I have a cup of coffee. How do I look at the cup of coffee? Jean-Paul Sartre had written a book about sitting in a cafe and looking at the waiter, and that's the whole book. So this is phenomenology, it's existentialism. This cup of coffee is made here, and I stay here for 2 hours, and the waiter is serving everyone, and I am having my puff of cigarette. And that's the story. So it's more individual view of the world. But another one sitting beside me in the cafe would have another view of the cafe. So you cannot generalize. Whereas in number 1, it's more susceptible for generalizing in big terms. But for number 2, you cannot. It's really individualistic. Number 3, critical theory. It's like saying, well, most of our theories are male-centric. So patriarchal. We should include women's rights. We should always include women, for example. Or we should include people of all faiths, not just Hindu, but also not just Christian, not just Sikh, but also indigenous people and atheists. So this is like, let us recognize the common humanity of everyone. Therefore, we have to change within the system. Number 4 is we need to really have radical change. So very different from number 1, which is things as they are. Number 4 is no, we need radical change of society. Okay. But if we look, how does this apply to research? Here it is. The first one is number 1, behavioralism and positivism is more open to quantitative research and also mixed method. It could also do mixed method. Number 4 is also qualitative but open to mixed method. So 1 and 4 are more objective. They look at things, but number 1, accept things as they are. Number 4, reject things as they are. Number 2, phenomenology looks at things and discusses the reality from the individual's point of view. So it's really very qualitative. How do I feel? How is the temperature? Am I happy? Am I sad? Or what are my thoughts? Do I feel hungry? And number 3 is also qualitative. Women's rights have to be included, the rights of Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Nagaland people, the Christians, Adivasi, everyone has to be included. So not just the mainstream of society. So depending on your paradigm of research, your paper is more attuned to qualitative research or not. Okay, but most research are number 1, positivism and behavioralism, which is more open to quantitative research. The research approaches and how you would do research in from the qualitative point of view. Ethnography simply means you're going deep into a community. It could be, let's say, you go and go to a restaurant and you work as a volunteer in a cafe. And then you want to see how people behave in a cafe? How do the waiters work, the wait staff, the manager, the cashier, the customers, and if there's a security guard? So ethnography looks at a community. It could be, for example, I've given you, somebody would do research in a restaurant. In fact, at my university in the US, a professor required all of us one whole semester to go to a community. And we did different research. One worked as a volunteer in a restaurant to see how everything is going on. Another worked in a printing press, okay? And another worked at a school, a volunteer, but the purpose of which is to gather data. It was a Puerto Rican community in Chicago. So after that, everyone came together, wrote papers, presented in one conference in a panel, and published all of the work. So it's ethnographic study of the Puerto Rican community in Chicago. So that's, you can do it in a community in the city, but oftentimes in the past, it's in the villages. Very famous ethnographers study, Clifford Geertz studied Indonesia, West Papua, Flores, a lot of early, even Margaret Mead did their ethnographic studies in Indonesia. And then phenomenology is the individual's experiences. It's usually from one person's point of view. So very good for qualitative research. It could be a biography or autobiography. How you see the world, how you feel the world, how you touch the world, how you taste the world. Grounded theory is an approach according to which you just gather data with no theory. So you are not guided by a theory. On the contrary, you are producing a theory. So this is inductive. Whereas if you use a theory, that is deductive. But most journals do not understand grounded theory. Most journals demand that you have a theory. But this is a legitimate way by which you do qualitative research. Case study is to look at one firm, one school, one mosque, one mandir, and then a community of people, and you just go deep into it. But unlike ethnography, you really have to immerse yourself in ethnography. Live there, eat there. And there are even rules in ethnography. Once I did an ethnographic study in a village, they told us, excuse me, whatever they feed you, do not reject. So we did that. And we slept on the floor. This is up in the mountain. And they fed us, sorry for the Hindus, I won't say the animal, the stomach of an animal with the undigested grass. That was their food. It is a traditional indigenous food. And we were told, when you do research in the field, ethnographic, you have to eat like them, talk like them, live like them. So we took a bath in the river, and then we'll dig hole and take banana leaves or leaves of some plants to clean ourselves in the forest. And then you just, they say, behave like the locals. But in case study, you don't do that. You just, you can look at literature, you can look online. It's usually urban-based, middle-class situation. Content analysis is qualitative research, but you look at specifically what was said and where, and what were the themes. Okay? And narrative research, you look at how people tell stories. So those are the different approaches in conducting research qualitatively. Different types of data. There are many types of data. For qualitative research, we use words and observation. And then from field notes, also from ethnographic research materials, the things that we see in the villages or in a cafe or restaurant where we do our research, or at the school or at an office situation, and also take photographs videos or YouTube, including TikTok. Some people are doing research on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, other social media, and they are valid, legitimate research. People are looking at, for instance, I know a faculty member here who conducted research. What is the benefit and what are the vices of using TikTok? Well, TikTok was good, they found out, because the young ones do not go out gambling or go out to drink alcohol. They're able to have fun watching TikTok, although it's also addicting, but compared to go out having some alcohol or having some vices, this is a less evil compared to going out and spending money for gambling and for alcohol. So that was one of the findings of some professors here who had joint effort in writing journal articles. So you can even use social media as your source of data. Okay, so data collection method, some of ways by which we can collect data are interviews. So when you have interviews, you should record them. There are now many AI tools, even Zoom, the paid version of Zoom, they can transcribe automatically. You can click and then it will transcribe. Or if you don't have the paid version of Zoom, you can upload the video to YouTube and then the AI, just put closed caption, will automatically do closed captioning. And then there are also AI tools you can easily find, which will summarize or transcribe the YouTube video on the right-hand column. So you don't have to watch the whole video on YouTube. It's 1 hour, 2 hours, just read the script. And there are also AI tools to say, can you summarize? And then they will summarize the video without you actually watching the video. It's 1 hour, 2 hour long. Of course, they are not perfect. I've checked them, I've used them. It makes some errors, but it's as close as you can get, not using 2 hours to watch a video. It helps you get the gist of the material. So focus group, interview is usually one person. Focus group would be a group of people. Sometimes it's on stages when you do research. You want to do interview if you want to find out how each person thinks. If you want to do focus group, if you want to know as a group, how do people think? The problem with focus group is that people, there's something called herd instinct. If someone says something and that person has a strong personality, everyone will agree. That's a problem. But the benefit of focus group is it's faster. For 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you're able to talk to 5 people or 10 persons. Whereas interview, you have one person for 1 hour. So focus group, instead of one whole day, you spend 1 hour with 8 people and it's done. So there are cost and benefit. Others do both. I have a research right now and we are doing 3. We're doing quantitative, close-ended questionnaire, and then we will do focus group and also interview. It will be one step after the other, not concurrent, but staged approach to doing the mixed method research. We will yield different results from the interview. Observation. When I was doing my doctorate, we had an exercise in the class in research, one of the research methods class, for 3 hours. Usually classes are 3 hours in the doctorate level. We were told, go somewhere during class hours, sit down, take your notebook, don't talk to anyone, just observe. And then when we came back, we have our notes. That was step 1. And next meeting, we will go into that. We will do data coding. So we did data coding in another week when we did our research based on actual practice. And then document analysis is the easiest. Most people use document just like electronic books, hard books, or anything you see on the web, okay, or reports of banks or corporations, and so on. Now, some data format that we can get used for qualitative research are samples, specimens. If you go to the village, you want to see how people are like, then you want to see what are the tools they use. And do they use organic materials like waste, use as charcoal, waste, use as fertilizer? Then you record all of those. And then the documents that you get here and there, you should also gather them. And I have a friend here, he's a professor, he went back to London. Every time he comes here, he gets boxes and boxes of documents for his doctorate in England. And he takes pictures, it costs him a leg and an arm, to ship them with him every time he travels. So sometimes materials are not available electronically. Therefore, you have to gather those documents. And he's studying the Muslim Buddhist relationship in southern Thailand. So it's hard to get those materials. He's from central Thailand, but you have to go to southern Thailand to get those materials. And your own notes are very important. Always have your notes wherever you go. Have a notebook or electronic notebook, iPad, all kinds, and take notes, because you will miss things or forget things if you don't take notes when you're out in the field. Transcripts simply mean once you have the recording, you have to transcribe them, write them down. There are many softwares which will transcribe. But again, there are free things, like if you upload your video to YouTube, what you can do is set the video at private. So only you can watch if you don't want other people to see it. And then click closed caption. Then you can have the transcription there. And then search for software that will do automatic transcription of the whole video, so you don't have to watch it. Then it's done. But I had friends who were doing research, they had the paid version of transcribing. Now it's AI. Again, Zoom can do it too. If you have the paid version, record it, and then once it's the recording, you click caption, then it will do it. Excuse me. Then taking photos, audio recording, films, qualitative test answers are also part of it. If you're a teacher, you're doing action research in the classroom, you want to see how students were before they came to class. So they call it diagnostic pretest. What knowledge do they have before coming to class? And then in general, and then at the end of the semester, you have at the beginning, it's the diagnostic pre-test assessment. At the end of the semester, it's a post-test evaluation. So you can compare what students would say before and after they attend this one semester class, for example, or regular exam answers you can of the class, qualitative. And then focus group discussion recording. Those are also some materials, the data from which you can get your data. Sampling. There are so many kinds of sampling. We should not be bothered with most of them. For qualitative, sampling is non-probability, which means it's not random, which means you select, which means oftentimes, if you're doing research, let's say of Coca-Cola, I don't know what or the mango juice company in India, then if you know somebody who works at a mango juice factory, who's either an executive or an office worker or someone at the plant who was a blue-collar worker, you say, can you give me access to your company one way or the other, because I want to do research on the mango juice company. That is convenient sampling, because you know the person who is connected to the mango juice company. So you do the sampling, which is non-probability. And then snowball is if the person you know, for example, the truck driver of the mango juice who delivers to all of the stores all around India, you would tell, can you talk to your supervisor? That is snowball sampling. And then now you know the supervisor say, can you refer me to the middle management of the mango juice company. That's another snowball. And then, can I access the CEO? Then you are able to find out everything about the company from the lowest level to the highest level. You can do research. So that is not representative. You can only say this is a case study. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, Harvard does not use quantitative in its Harvard Business School journal and Harvard Business School teaching. They use case study. They always say, how do you manage your manager? So they have 3 case studies. I once taught using the Harvard Business School method, and their materials are copyrighted, we cannot share. So one lesson I remember is how to manage your manager. So there are 3 employees who manage their managers differently. The manager just doesn't know what to do. So one employee just say, that's not my fault. He doesn't know how to delegate. He doesn't know we have to have meeting, to have evaluation. Another employee says, well, I'll try to talk to the manager once in a while and ask him what I can do. The third employee instead managed the manager. So he says, these are things we have to do for the year. And I identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So telling the manager, what do you think should be our priority now for this month? What is urgent for this week? And what is something routine that we can do throughout the year? So there are 3 ways of managing the manager. So that's a case study at Harvard. It's non-probability, it's purposive, it's convenience, it's snowball, and it's okay. Oftentimes we're told quantitative is better, but as Harvard, not really. A case study is as important as big metadata study using quantitative. One is not better than the other. They yield different results. Okay, so this is sampling that will be used in qualitative, non-probability, non-random, purposive, convenience, snowball, and judgmental. You just select. Why am I studying mango juice? It's my choice. Not that it's the most important industry, but that's what I want to study. And this is what I'm doing. Okay, problems. There are some problems when we deal with a lot of data. But to solve that problem, we have to have very clear research questions. That's why I say, if we have research questions, which in fact cannot be dealt with the time during which we arrive at the village, then we have to change our research question, which is okay. Unlike in quantitative, it's almost cast in stone. You have to do what you say you will do, but not in qualitative. You can change your research question. It could work backwards, as they say. And then you must develop a data management plan. I'll show you one way by which it can be done. And use software if you need to, and you can access to it, or you can buy, or if you have time to devote to learning, to using it, and create a coding system. We will have all of these in the next slides. Okay. The problem with qualitative research is many times it's based on opinion of the people whom we are interviewing, but also our opinion. That's double bias. That's a big problem. So we have to avoid our bias to come in. Let's say if I am a Christian and I am studying someone who's Muslim, I have my own baggage. I know the Bible. I know the Bible says this. Deep down, whether I admit or not, my brain tells me things have to be done this way, not that way. So that's a problem for researchers with different backgrounds. So we have to recognize that there are biases which might emerge upon doing the research. So you have to be transparent. Once we go, let's say, to the mango juice factory, will say, I am an academic or I'm a researcher. Mango juice is not something special to me, but I'm doing it because It's a subject, I think, which is important for India, for instance, because it's natural and so on and so forth, can provide business opportunities as well as employment opportunities. Secondly, recognize reflexivity, which means my being a male, if I'm studying a woman, I will have biases. Or if I'm studying a man, I might have, without admitting it, inadvertent bias, saying, of course, the man is right. So we have to be aware of the biases, religion, sex, okay, and all our other differences. If I'm, let's say, from the majority group, Hindu, and then I'm studying people who are Sikh or who are Muslim, those biases are within us, like it or not. We have to face the fact and then put up front that this is my background, but I'll try as much as possible not to be biased the way by which I write and present the data, which I get from the research collaborators. And involve many researchers as much as possible. I have a research here with 4 faculty members, 4 of us. So before submitting, we check each other's work using the same data. So what I don't see other faculty members see. So we check on each other's mistakes or absence of recognition of certain facts in our research project. It's very helpful to work with other people for validation. These are some stages to conduct qualitative research. 1, clearly you must have the correct research questions. 2, what will be the research method that you will use? 3, what is your data management plan? And 4, you might go manual, you might go software, but decide early on which way will be your way to collect data and to analyze your data. And to ensure data quality, you must have different people coding. Like my research here, we are 4 professors. 4 of us are coding and checking on each other's work. And this is called intercoder reliability, to make sure that we have Christian, Buddhist, we are different and non-believer working together. So they are, because our questions have the socioeconomic profile, we could have our biases come out. And oftentimes we don't realize it, and the other professor will tell us, did you not see this? Aren't you aware of this? So we were able to check each other and correct our mistakes in our draft. So we made a lot of revisions in our research based on intercoder reliability check. And be aware of our biases. Okay. Data management plan. How do you do it? So again, you must have very clear research questions. In quantitative research, you must have very clear hypothesis. In qualitative research, you must have very clear research questions. Okay. And what will be the research data collection method you will use? And what are the types of materials that you will use? Will they be words? Will they be recordings? Will they be video clips? Okay, where will you store your data? Oftentimes when you do research formally at an institution like the university, they ask you, where do you store your data? The reason for which they ask it is for confidentiality and anonymity. You want to protect the identities of the people whom you have interviewed and back up just in case your data gets lost, which happens oftentimes with technology. Then after we have all of these, we code, documentation, and then we have to go by the ethics rule, excuse me, and who can access the data. Like the 4 of us in our current research here, we have a common Google Drive where we store all our data. Only the 4 of us can access it. As you know, in Google Drive, you can, keep the data public, or people who can access it are those who only, to whom you have given the approval to access the drive. That's what we did, only the four of us. That's where we archive it. And we really meet once a week. It's a 1-year research project, and we meet weekly. Once we get the data, we process, we check on each other's work. Again, I started earlier. Even an American professor who teaches here always say, "Oh, that's the analysis of the paper." I said, "No, you're referring to the interpretation." He doesn't even get it up to now. And he's a native speaker and is a well-published author in Scopo. Okay, now, in very simple terms, analysis in the dictionary means to break down elements from the whole. I'll give you an example of that. Data interpretation is more subjective. You are telling something, whereas data analysis, you are identifying the elements. Okay, for example, you see an elephant. Okay, you see elephant has, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 kilogram with 2 tusks and hard skin and a snout and a tail, etc. That's the data analysis. Data interpretation is, oh, I don't like it, it's too big. That's the difference. Oh, I prefer lion to an elephant. That's the data interpretation. Very different. Okay. Oftentimes, data analysis is in the finding section. In quantitative research, it's called results. In qualitative research, it's called findings. Data interpretation is often in the discussion section. There are also 2 ways to use discussion. Sometimes it's in the finding section. You have analysis and discussion. But in quantitative research, oftentimes it is the conclusion. So there's no fixed rules. You can see different authors writing it differently, depending on what the journal wants. Again, there are general rules of research, but then there are nuances in each journal, in each author, and each department and each author. Okay. Data analysis is the objective reporting. Elephant is 5,000 kilogram with 2 tusks, it's with a long snort and a long tail. But data interpretation is, it's too big to fit into the zoo. So that it's not in what you find out, it's how you feel and say. 2 different things. This is an example of data analysis. The concept of imperialism. This is data analysis. There are 5 elements of imperialism. Very objective. Nothing bad, good or bad. Just say it's capitalism, it's export of capital, division of the world, it's finance capital and financial oligarchy. You are describing things as they are. Data interpretation, you're saying it's a thing of the past. Or no, it's still alive today. We still have imperialism. Or third, it's just a nice word. They call it globalization now to hide the word imperialism. And then globalization is nothing but corporate globalization or imperialism. This is not what you find out, but what you interpret from the data that you gather. Okay, analysis is to break down. There are 5 elements of imperialism. And then for the interpretation, this is subjective. Imperialism is not here, imperialism is here. Imperialism is just a nice word, but I mean, it's a bad word now, so they call it globalization now. Or globalization is in fact corporate globalization, because only corporations can go in and out everywhere. But how come the poor migrant workers cannot? They have difficulty. There's only free movement of capital, but not free movement of labor. That's the interpretation. Okay. Data analysis. We do analysis to break down elements to find out, are there patterns or themes? Okay. And to do that, we will see, let's go. Okay, you can go manual or computer assisted. For the computer assisted, there's a lot for qualitative. I have taken summer courses while I was doing my doctorate in the US, knew this in NVivo. But after that, I realized it's not worth it. It just sounds like, oh, I have software, I'm cool, I'm using computer. But at the end of the day, you still have to go manual. It's somewhat automated, but still you have to input. It's not any better for me or worse. Even when you go to Word document, if you want to do content analysis, if your file is in Word document, you can click the find, let's say you want to look for the word Vandana Shiva. And the word Vandana Shiva appeared 259 times. So Word document can count, do content analysis for you. You don't have to go to NVivo or to go new disk. I'm just saying, you can go, there's nothing wrong. I'm saying Word can do that. Word can count for you. And you want to count Vijay Prasad. Click, oh, it appeared 52 times. Okay. Or what's his name? Tarur, Shishak Tarur. Okay. How many times did it come out? 52 times. So for content analysis, Word can do it for you. But feel free to buy if you're a corporate institution, you can afford it as corporate or individual, and try to use the software. I've taken courses and I felt it's not any better than what I can do. Okay, gather qualitative data, organize, code, analyze, interpret, and report. Types of data, analysis, content, discourse, framework, grounded theory, phenomenological analysis, narrative analysis, thematic analysis. I don't know if we have time to go to examples, but these are different ways. Maybe I can just simplify. Content analysis, as I said earlier, you count how many times certain things came out in your presentation or in your paper. you want to find out. Okay, so Arundhati Roy. Okay, you type. And then this number of times came out, 52. So that's content analysis. Discourse analysis, you want to see how, let's say, the speeches of certain politicians link. What are the main themes? Like Modi, when you went to South Africa, to China, to Ukraine, to Indonesia, what did Modi say? Okay, you want to get his main point. Is he saying we want to go BRICS full time, or want to be friends with China, with France during the French National Independence Day? He was a guest of honor, or US, or all of them will be his friends. You want to find out using discourse analysis. Framework analysis is you have a theory and you're using the theory and you want to find out what are the findings. Grounded theory, as I mentioned earlier, you start from no theory and you create the theory. And phenomenological analysis, you look at the individual's perception of the world. Narrative analysis is, for example, the Ukraine war. There are three views about the Ukraine war. One, the Ukrainian story about Ukraine. Two, the Russian story about Ukraine. Three, you have NATO and the US view of Ukraine. Then there are three stories about what's going on in Ukraine. Okay? Thematic is the most common. You just want to come out with what are the main themes that emerge. So I'll skip these examples. You can do that in business, engineering, literature. Okay, this is an example of a faculty member here who studied Buddhism as a text of Buddha for content analysis. What are the places where Buddha mentioned dialogues without stated results in the sutras, and dialogues with positive results? So this is what you did. As I said, Word can do that. You don't need a software to do this. Okay. Okay, so thematic, you want to see life-work balance, stress in the workplace. I'll skip, you can do in sociology, medicine, chemistry, biology, physics, business, okay, psychology, literature, sociology, business, I'm skipping all of these due to time constraint. Coding. So it is to attach label and so that you can categorize what you're looking at. For coding, there are problems, so you have to train the coders to avoid biases. Again, biases are inherent because we are man or woman, we are this religion or that religion, we live here or there, we are from this caste or that caste, and we are from this city or that city. Or we're from the city, not the village, we're from the village, not the city. There are built-in biases. And we have to admit that and try to avoid it. And then regularly refine our coding scheme. Okay, so computer can help you. Okay, two types of coding. Deductive is if you already have a theory, you will fit everything to your theory. Inductive, you do not have a theory and you are creating a new theory. That's the inductive approach of creating. This is a sample of deductive coding. You have a theory that says there are laws and customary practices lead to peace building. When you apply it, then you say in the village, they have their leaders, they have the customary practice, and this is how they do peace building. This is deductive coding. Another example of deductive coding, you have the theory of structural functionalism. There's a structure and there are functions. So you say, for example, the structure of the office of the presidency. So what are the functions of the president? Then you try to note them down, you code them. So this is, because there's a theory, you're only applying the theory to find out what is the structure, president? What are the functions? All of these. Okay, this is a sample coding. For example, this is an actual interview. What pets do you have? This is a line-by-line coding. So you code pets, an alpaca and 3 dogs. So you code 4 pets. Only one alpaca, they can die of loneliness if they don't have a friend. So you code, this is your own words, not paired. And then the answer, I didn't know that. I'll just have to get 5 more. So your code, get 5 more to match. This is the simple manual coding. You put line by line and then no theory, but you just come up with what's out there. So, okay. So line by line coding and then categorize and identify them. And then there are many kinds of coding depending on what you want to look for. You want to use the participants' own words are very important. And in a few journal articles I submitted, and even in my doctoral research, my professors told me, you have to use the words of your research participants. So that's the most important one. And then all the other ways of coding. Okay. To have high quality codes, you have to make clear distinction. Don't just code customer, because customer product is different from customer service. So those are 2 codes instead of 1 code. Oftentimes, many students want to prejudge. I want to study, let's say, bricks. Bricks is good. You already have your own conclusion. That's not good research. When you interview people, whatever they say, I'm sure there will be at least 1 negative or at least 1 positive. You have to have those emerge and they should be recorded in your research. Surprises are most powerful. What you don't expect will be powerful research findings. For example, we had a research on online teaching and learning during the pandemic. One surprise we found out after interviewing people from all over Thailand was that students prefer to study on their own in Thailand. This is, we did some sampling, quota sampling, but professors prefer lecture. They don't match. That's a very powerful research. Like, there's a problem because students prefer to study alone, but the professors prefer to lecture. That is a powerful research because you do not just say, oh, online learning is good, period. Rather, you show things which are not expected. Those are better research. And not everything bricks is good or bad. You have to show both sides of bricks or G20 or G7. Okay, to make sure, you have to make sure your codes are of high quality. Are they reliable? Are they consistent? Are they accurate? So this is what one of my journal articles, which I submitted to the US, which is already published. I was told do peer debriefing and do member validation. So I did, because I interviewed some people in Ukraine. I was in Ukraine for 1 month before the war. I'm sorry, the special military operation. So I was able to talk with a lot of people, but when I wrote my draft, the journal told me to send my draft, show it to the people in Ukraine. That's called member check or member validation. Peer debriefing is I show to other professors here what I wrote for them to check consistency or inconsistency. After I did that, the paper was approved for publication. And I also teach my students here, they have to do peer debriefing and member checking because that's required by them. Two kinds of coding, hierarchical and flat. I'll just give you an example. Hierarchical is, for example, animals, vertebrate, mammal, human. And then Asia, India, 2023, female, generation alpha. So it's go from the general to the specific. You code them. But then, so you have like customer service, positive, negative, so you show. And then there is, this is my coding in a book chapter published in the US, macro, meso, and micro. So I coded what causes violent extremism. There are 3 factors, macro, meso, and micro. Okay, so this is hierarchical also. Crisis, what are the crises? This is one paper I published in Ukraine, 2021. Economic, religious, health, and climate. So this is hierarchical. And then wisdom, scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Bible, the sutras of Buddha. Action, tree planting. Change, collaboration, harmony, climate change. This is another hierarchical research. This is flat coding. This is my paper published somewhere. Okay, in the US. This is flat. I said there are 3 narratives about Ukraine. NATO blames Russia. Ukraine blames Russia. Russia blames NATO. So it's good to show different voices in qualitative research. Don't just say Russia is wrong or Russia is right. Right? Better show these are the 3 voices. That is the richness of the data in qualitative research. Another flat research is this. There are different types of professors, early innovators, early adapters, early majority, late majority, laggards. This is by Professor Carroll. Okay, maybe I'll end with ethics due to time constraint. Whatever we do, qualitative or quantitative, do no harm. People should know you're conducting research on them. It should be open. And then whatever they say, especially if they have hurt feelings, that trauma, that some accident, you should keep those details confidential and do not give the name of the people. And you need to have approval of the people whom you interview. Okay, I'll just skip all of these. Just say data visualization is another way of interpretation. You're telling a story. I'll just show them. I don't have to talk about them. Okay, this is another data interpretation. You can summarize the whole paper. This is the summary of my whole paper, which is in one chart. Okay, to end. So these are the qualitative research to-do list. 1, you must have very clear research questions. 2, you must have factual data, qualitative data, after which you conduct data analysis and coding. 3, you do your subjective data interpretation. And 4, do your data visualization. Thank you.